any business that may become before it. Tess, roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Sokolowski.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Flanagan.
Here.
Councilmember Stokely.
He's here, but it's easy for you.
Present, but Mr. Stokely has recused himself. Councilmember Leonard. Councilmember Tutino.
Present.
President Griffin.
Here.
Mayor Frost.
Can we have a prayer of council,
Could you
please?
please rise? O divine Master, in deep humility, we place ourselves, our thoughts, and our plans in thy hands. We beg thee to fill our minds and our wills with the gifts of wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, and piety. Help us not to think of self or personal desires, but rather consider the responsibilities laid upon us. Help us to promote as far as possible the welfare of our people and to treat them with impartiality and justice. Grant us the power to set a good example in thought, word, and deed, so that thy blessings will be showered upon us and the people we represent. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't have no special announcements, but we have presentations, and we'll start with Steph. And
At this point in the meeting, I will be turning it over to Mr. Savona.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're on the record. This is the time and place set for a public hearing to have council consider the adoption of an ordinance amending the Borough of Conshohocken zoning ordinance by creating a new planned SP4 specially planned district to create unified development areas for unified and cohesive development subject to specific development standards and to permit certain uses, rezoning certain land presently in the business and commercial district to SP4 and providing for an effective date. Council will recall this ordinance has been before you on a number of occasions prior to this evening. The matter was referred back to the Montgomery County Planning Commission after Council's last hearing based upon revisions that were made to the text of the ordinance as a result of those hearings. It has been reviewed by the County Planning Commission, it has been reviewed by the Conshohocken Planning Commission, and is now before Council for a final hearing and for Council's consideration for the prospective adoption. The applicant for the for the SP4 zoning ordinance amendment is present, represented by Council Jennifer Wunder and Robert Gunlack, and at this point, a presentation from the applicant would be in order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rob Gunlock, attorney for the applicant, my colleague Jennifer Wunder. As Mr. Savona described, we've been here on at least 3 prior occasions and provided testimony for the proposed SP4 ordinance amendment to your zoning ordinance, which includes a text amendment to establish a new district, as well as a proposal to rezone a block that has been described in great detail to the SP4. I have some housekeeping items for the record tonight. First, I believe, Mr. Savona, I haven't given you the original copy of a joint consent petition for amendment from Washington Hose and Steam Fire Engine Company. They own a parcel that's part of the block. The remainder of the block is either owned by the applicant or their related entity as either legal or equitable owner. So let me give you for the record that Washi's joined her.
All right. For purposes of this hearing, we'll mark this as Applicant's Exhibit A1. This petition reflects the property owner's consent to the rezoning of parcel 05-00-04252-009.
Correct. In layman's terms, Washi's essentially saying that they join in to the petition of Keystone in support and ask that their parcel be subject to this district as well. We also have some exhibits for the record. The revised SP4 ordinance amendment. We've included a red line version of that from the changes that you saw last, a summary of those changes, and the Montgomery County 2017. I have those 4 exhibits in a binder.
Very well, we'll mark these collectively as applicants Exhibit 2, and for purposes of reference, it will be applicants Exhibit 2.1 would be the revised SP4 ordinance, which is the ordinance advertised for consideration, 2.2, the comparison, 2.3, the summary of the changes, and 2.4, the Montgomery County Planning Commission letter.
I do not have a copy of the recommendation from the Borough Planning Commission, but we did appear before them, and they made a positive recommendation of the ordinance adoption. I would assume that's forthcoming, or maybe Mr. Savona can.
We do have a copy of that. It's we'll mark for purposes of the record as Borough's Exhibit 1, B1, a copy of the May 11th, 2017 report of the Conshohocken Borough Planning Commission with respect to their consideration of the proposed final SP4 ordinance. Without objection, all exhibits marked will be admitted.
As part of the A2 exhibits, you'll see behind tab 3 is just a brief summary of essentially the revisions to the ordinance amendment since we were here last. I think that council has seen those revisions and has certainly had an opportunity to review them. We don't, Mr. President, have any additional testimony that we were proposing to call unless you would like some additional testimony as to the revisions. Mr. Bookshire from Keystone is here and can describe in any detail the 4 revisions or address any questions about them. But other than that, those are the exhibits for the record. We don't have any other testimony to put on in support of this, but certainly are available with our consultants here tonight to address any questions of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Gunlack. Members of council, the exhibits that have been offered do document the changes, as council is aware, that were made to the ordinance. You have the reports and recommendations from the Montgomery County Planning Commission and the Borough Planning Commission. If there are any questions from council at this point regarding the proposed ordinance as revised and finalized, now would be the time for those questions of the applicant. Otherwise, we'll open it to any public comment before we close the hearing.
I just have one question about number 4, the removed reserve parking provision. That applies to the original proposal where you were going to not build all the parking right away. So that's gone away. You'll build all the parking immediately. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Great. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Council, got any more questions? Mike, you worked on this,
Yes, Mr. President.
and you got all the concerns that we had. You
Yes.
straightened out, right?
I think we provided council with a red line after our last public hearing reflecting the changes that are summarized in the exhibit that's up on the screen. Those were the 4 areas where we made revisions to the ordinance that was the basis of the final version that's been reviewed by the planning commissions and is before you tonight. I think that the language that's reflected in exhibit 2.2 that shows the redlining is consistent with the red line you've seen before.
Right.
So the ordinance does appear to reflect what council had requested in the way of changes.
Now, if we don't have questions, can we just make a statement?
Certainly. Do you want to do that before we close the
Before
hearing
public comment or after?
or after? It's up to you.
You can do it before.
I think before would be better.
Certainly.
We've been through an exhaustive process, and I feel like Keystone's been a very good partner to the Borough Council and the people of Conshohocken. We had some kind of tense, unpleasant conversations about parking, and I feel that you've really helped us see and understand, and the fact that you are providing us with 150 parking spaces from 7 a.m. in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. That's double what we currently have, and that's really a plus for the whole town and the community. I also think the additional parking after 5 o'clock is a plus because you'll be bringing in new restaurants, and we have a thriving restaurant community, so that'll only benefit our current restaurants. And I appreciate that Keystone will pay for all of the required PennDOT improvements to the intersections that will be impacted by the new development. And that will hopefully mitigate the traffic we already have and will continue to have. I also think we have to look at it as a steady tax stream for our borough that we have many needs and wants in Conshohocken, and this is one of the ways that we can keep our taxes in line and also keep up the amenities that we find to be important. And another thing is that the new offices and the hotel and the retail outlets will provide jobs for our residents, or opportunities for jobs. Unfortunately, our economy has turned away from service industry and hands-on jobs. Not everyone's going to go to college, and we need positions and jobs for people that want to work in the service industry and that type of business. So I think that's important. And finally, I think it's wonderful that you're going to restore the historic firehouse for us and maintain that as it should be. So for those reasons, I'm definitely in favor of the proposal.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Since we're on the record, I just ask you to identify yourself, give us your residence, and then...
Hi, my name's Amy Pfeiffer. I'm kind of nervous. I know Mrs. Leonard, and I know Mr. Stokely. I know Bob Frost. I grew up in this community, and I just met Anita the other day. And I agree that this is a huge benefit to our community. However, it changes the look of Conshohocken dramatically. This is a huge high-rise that's going to be going up. 180 feet is large. That's, 12 stories almost? 10 stories? 10. And I agree that the parking is horrible here, but I don't know. Is this what we want to trade for, changing the way everything looks here? When you come across the bridge, it looks a certain way, and you feel like you're at home. But now it's not going to be the same. So is that what we want to trade in for that? This high rise that's going to be there is going to be blocking houses that are behind it. I know that the traffic, I'm sure they have traffic patterns that they're going to change and maybe help us, but is there really any helping Conshohocken's traffic problem? That's really kind of not possible in my eyes, because I have to leave the house before 7 or 6:45 in the morning to get out of here to make to King of Prussia, or just to get across the bridge. And if I leave after 7, I'm sitting in traffic for 40 minutes to get across. That's a long time, and it's not just me. I see it on Facebook, other people posting, I've been sitting here for an hour trying to get across the bridge. I guess I want to know, how is it going to benefit our community, bringing other people that we may not know in this community also. They're going to be walking on our trails, are they going to be leaving more trash? Are they willing to help accommodate that also, or help with alleviate that? Right now we have different areas, like Yoga Home puts together a, group effort to kind of help clean up the trails. And it's dirty enough as it is, bringing in more people and people that don't care about the community necessarily, if they're coming in to just stay and then leave. I kind of am concerned about that. And I know that you guys are going to vote either way, and I know that it's going to be good for the community in the long run, I'm sure. But I think that somebody had to be here, because I saw the January 18th recording, and I guess it was Bernard Griggs was here, and he said it doesn't look like the community cares. But we do care. I think nobody knows about it as much as, I know that from More Than the Curve is kind of why I'm here. I guess I wish there was more awareness about what's going on, because I think that this room would be filled with more people who are more concerned.
Can I address some of that? So the first thing for awareness.
Speak up, please.
Put your mic's on. There we go. To address the awareness issue, with your being familiar with it from More Than the Curve. So the borough goes to a great extent to get the message out there. For the last, how many years has Keystone been going on?
Since 2012 or
Yes.
14.
So all the information for all the meetings is always out there. It's always posted. We have things go out in our quarterly newspaper. I am aware that More Than the Curve is a source of information for the residents. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not all of the information. So the residents have the responsibility also on that note.
I totally agree with you.
So on that note, I'm also going to address your saying the change when you come over the bridge. So as some of us who have been here our whole lives,
Sure.
myself, Robert, Jane, we've seen coming over the bridge change 5 times,
Sure.
it's still home.
Yeah.
It doesn't change how you feel about Conshohocken. You just learn to appreciate how the community has evolved for all the right reasons. And in the last 20 years, it has evolved for all the right reasons. And this is really just, as we see it, more of the finishing product of downtown.
Okay, so is there going to be any more construction down there such as this that is going to be on the waterfront? Because I know SOAR right now has a building there and there's an empty lot. You know, my fear is something else big is going to go in there, or where Hale Pump is. I don't know all the details about what is
Right.
going on with those properties, or EF Moore. You know, I know there was arguments about Wawa's. Fine, whatever. But what's going to happen with those properties after this? If we let something that's this big come into town, I think that's my feeling of, if we let one big thing come in, what's the next big thing?
So this specifically addresses this project. I believe down on the river, the only other one, and correct me if I'm wrong, is O'Neill's?
There's
What's the
two
other?
that are still
One on the west side.
will be
There's
developed.
another apartment building.
And I believe that
then off the
fills it up.
So to give you some context, the borough is divided up into different zoning districts.
Sure.
And each zoning district permits different types of uses, different types of building, different heights of buildings. So everything that is in the hopper, so to speak, or in the works to be built in the areas where you would see a lot of height, down on the riverfront, are all in the specially planned zoning districts, SP1, SP2, SP3. And that's generally where you see all of the tall buildings in town, Pulvers, Tower Bridge buildings, the various other buildings that we're talking about now that have been proposed, the O'Neill building down in front of the Sheds buildings on the river, the Elm Street project at 400 West Elm. Those are all in specially planned districts where those are permitted. What's unique about this, and I think it's important to note, is that this is creating a final specially planned zoning district to complete an area of development within, believe it or not, one of the original redevelopment areas that were planned out for the borough back in the 1980s. This district, which is why the council is considering it a zoning amendment, this creates rules that only apply in this specially planned district. And unless council affirmatively agrees to change the zoning somewhere else, you won't see buildings of this density or this height or this type of building literally anywhere else in the borough.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the first of that happening for a while. So how's to say that's not, I mean, Conshohocken has grown and progressed, you know, in such a fast pace. You know, I left for a couple years and I came back and all of a sudden it's a booming town. I agree the restaurant district is great. I agree, you know, bringing new people into town is awesome because we don't have the factories on the waterfront like we used to. But I just want to know, like, is there a point where you as the council say, I'm sorry, we're not going to build there? That is a hard no. We're not going to change that zone, yeah.
I've been in Conshohocken 76 years. I'm the oldest one to come out. First of all, he's always hollering about Fiat Street, the traffic. It's not Conshohocken that holds the traffic up.
Right.
Everybody used Fiat Street for a throughway to get to the expressway.
Sure.
So that's not Conshohocken's fault. Now, if we stay with the thinking what people want to stay, Conshohocken would be a ghost town now.
Sure.
So you got to go with the times. And nowadays, Conshohocken's running out of space. When people building things now, they can't go out. So where do everybody go when they can't
Gotta go up, I get it.
Go up. We're not going to have 50 high-rise. This is just one project. Because I don't think anybody else is going to get any property to do that. So this is just one product.
I think that's what I really
I
wanted
can
to hear.
understand your what you call, but you got to go with the times. You can't stay you can't stay dormant because if we would, we'd be a ghost town.
I agree. I just want to make sure that our town is keeping some kind of history here and make sure they're not changing the entire, we're not going to be the second Philadelphia or the second Manayunk.
We're actually
you know?
very dedicated on keeping the history and diversifying the rest of the downtown area and up Fayette Street, other than what it is now.
Sure.
Adding to it.
That's fine, but I just, I wanted to make sure
And
for
another
me,
Well, and
Another
actually,
thing-
this came council earlier this year. I think it's worth noting, just because nobody was here to see it, but this same council earlier this year adopted an amendment to the zoning ordinance to actually protect your single-family residences that are in the historical areas and the older areas, the more established communities of the borough, which is something that council had talked about doing for a long time, trying to stave off the tearing down of the large single homes in the construction of newer, higher density housing. So you have taken steps, the council's taken steps even this year to try to ameliorate that.
I think that this meeting was something that started to bring awareness to other people, because I saw comments on Facebook about this meeting, but I don't see those people here. But I think that maybe people will, I'm a younger person in this town, and, well, I mean, considering, but, I think that if people watch this video, I'm sorry that I look really nervous and my voice is shaking, but I think that people hear that from you guys and know that you're committed to keeping this town the way it is and still grow it in a safe way to keep the integrity. That is important to a lot of people here, because everybody just wants to complain, but nobody wants to speak up and say anything about
And I
it.
appreciate you coming out and
So-
speaking up, because it's easy to complain on Facebook
Sure.
and sit on your couch and do nothing. So I really admire you for coming out and speaking to us.
Can I say one thing out? You're talking about 12 stories. You're going downtown. That's going to look like 12 stories as you come in. But you look up up here, it's only going to look like about 4 or 5 stories high, because you're down here, and Conshahocken's on a hill as it goes up.
I understand. I think I just needed to hear from you guys that you believe in this town and that you're not just doing this for money or for
No.
anything other than, this is for the best, making Country better.
So
I say it Country. I say it the old way. I know when you're not from
we
Country.
all say country.
Yeah.
So just so you know, we put together a task force recently. We've met once, and the objective of that task force is to do exactly what your ask is to look at our town, identify the areas that we want to preserve our history, and then identify the areas where there's still growth opportunity, and what the regulations we can put around that opportunity. So this group is a diverse group. It's made up of lots of different members of the community, and I'm really excited because there are those feelings that you have that are not unique. There are a lot of people that have very, very strong feelings about how our town needs to stay, and I'm confident that they'll represent all of you, and you will all have the opportunity to have input as we move through the process, so that we can develop our zoning codes to really serve the purposes for the next 10 years.
But I could say one thing to you. Before we built this Borough Hall, did you see that blue building there? Everybody in country with a blue monster elephant and everything, right? Tear it down, do this, everything. Now look at it.
I know.
Change comes.
I know.
And change is
Do we
good.
want to talk about what we're doing with that old building now? No, we'll do that for now.
That's for later.
But
Save
change
that
is
for
good.
another night.
Yeah. I'm just saying, change is good.
I agree with you, and I know that we have to keep up to
You
date.
gotta have a little vision. Yeah, like I said, I'm an old man, but I still got a little vision. And I still can see a good vision in Conshohocken. And I don't care if we put up 10, what's going on, I think people are still going to come to Conshohocken.
I agree. I think that Conshohocken's a great area, and I
That's
know that it's
what
going to
I'm saying.
continue to grow, but I think that hearing that it's going to, you guys, like I said, are going to keep it in that same
It's our intent
manner.
to keep it that way
Way.
and keep it unique.
Yes.
So
It's going to be unique when we finish. Believe me.
Great.
I
Thank
might not
you.
be around to see it all, but
Thank you.
I'm hoping. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Anybody with us? Name, address?
Hello, my name is Carlos Melendez. I live in 335 East 7th Avenue, and as some of you might know, I'm the owner of Coyote Crossing Restaurant. I've been in my business for 20 years. I love this town. I think that you have done a fantastic job. And you have, I remember being in a meeting literally 18 years ago trying to open a patio where I had to be escorted out by the police because they were trying to beat me up. And actually, one of the members of the council gave them authorization to take me outside and beat me up. So I can see that progress has taken place. And I love to see new faces, young faces, and I love to see the town moving forward and moving towards a different direction. I love this town. I have made Conshohocken my home. And I want to share a little story with you. I'm not here to speak. I love the project. I think that it's going to be, if it's well done, I think it's going to be great for our community. So there is a part of me that really wants to see this through. You have seen me here speaking in behalf of other projects in Conshohocken. I think this is just part of progress. We might not like the look of the town sometimes, but I guess that's just, part of, it's natural. Sometimes people are reluctant to change, and I understand that, and I've been part of that. But every time that a restaurant has opened in town, you have seen me here, for the most part, speaking on behalf of new business. I embrace competition. I think it's great for our restaurant community. But there is a portion of this project that I'm against, and I want to respectfully give my point of view. We have a struggle in Conshohocken since the 2008 economy to fill our seats on the restaurant community as is. I do believe that we have a fabulous restaurant community. We offer a variety of different type of concepts, and we work very hard, and we have very, very good restaurateurs in our town. A restaurant is just as good as your last meal, and it's a very, very tough business. And as you were saying, we do employ people that don't go to college, and I think that we're very positive for the community. I live a situation similar to this in Westchester. I spent $3 million opening a beautiful restaurant, and I was promised to be the last liquor license that was going to come in town. 7 liquor licenses later, all restaurants were struggling because the competition got so bad that it was just not enough customers to fulfill our restaurants. So what we all did, unfortunately, because we wanted to stay in business and we wanted to survive, is to turn to the next option within our restaurant, which was the sale of alcohol. Better happy hours, better specials, late night specials. And when it started happening in the restaurant community in Westchester, it deteriorated so bad, it became a bar community. Then people from other towns knew that was a cheap place to drink because restaurants were desperate to create revenue. I will have 800 people drinking at night in my restaurant, and I will have $3,000 worth of sales. And yet, fights and problems with the community and the neighbors, and drunk people all over the place. And then the police couldn't really handle the situation that was happening. People got killed in accidents, a lot of DUIs, etc. My concern of this project is that we have already seen our business in Conshohocken being diminished by Plymouth Meeting, by all the high-end restaurants that have been opening in King of Prussia. But to have that many legal licenses to come into our town to sell more alcohol, I do believe that this is not going to help our community. This is not going to help the restaurants that are already in place. And I know that I have talked to many of them. I'm really disappointed that many of them are not here because everybody's upset. But why not, if we are in the process of seeing what's best for the community, why not turn this project or the places that are supposed to have restaurants into more retail, into other type of attractions that it will bring more people to support already the backbone of business that exists already within the community. If you go to places on Fayette Street during the week, you will see that they're only 1/3 full. If you bring more liquor licenses, I'm telling you, it's going to happen the same thing that happened in Westchester. In Westchester, there were fabulous restaurants with great concept that offer fabulous food, and it was a great experience for the patrons. All of them, 13 restaurants went out of business within 2 years. And now, when you go to Westchester, all you see are bars. And people don't go there for dining anymore. People are afraid to go there because obviously Westchester is different. It's a college town, and I get that. But I'm telling you, knowing my business, and I don't speak out of envy. I really want to see this project go through, but I would hate to see 5,000, 4,000, whatever seats are coming. I'm sure if they want to build a hotel, it just makes sense that they want to build a restaurant within the hotel and have a liquor license for it. For me, that's of course, you have to do something like that. That won't hurt anybody. But then you want to be bringing a lot of new people that are going to be staying in the hotel. Why not we feed the people that are already there, the people that have invested in our community? Why don't we turn those spaces that's supposed to be restaurants into something different? That's all I'm asking for, that if there is a chance that this can be, is something that you guys can look into it, because I'm telling you, 5 liquor licenses is going to start creating a problem that you have not seen yet. This has grown, and this is one of the most beautiful things that I love about Conshohocken, and what I do believe that you have done a tremendous job is to allow this town to grow almost in an organic way. When they wanted to do the Super Wawa, I spoke on behalf of that project. I didn't see an issue. I didn't see a problem. I see a problem with 5 liquor licenses coming into this town and bringing more liquor. I'm telling you, that's gonna create a problem. That's my only concern, And again, I embrace competition, but I think this is going to be a little too much and a little unfair for all of us that are already struggling creating a successful business. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Any more
Mr.
public
Melendez, I just wanted to speak to that. We have listened to many of the business owners about that concern, and I appreciate your story because it does kind of connect all of the dots. One of the things that we worked very hard when we were going through the amendment was to put a condition of use into the amendment to try and control that issue. So the project won't be able to just bring in businesses with liquor licenses unless they get a condition of use approval through the council, with the exception of the hotel and a restaurant and a bar. But outside of that, what we worked hard on with Keystone and with Mr. Savona is to put an extra layer in there so that they would have to come before council to request that condition of use. So we did hear what you had to say, and we did build in some extra protection for that.
But what? And I apologize.
That's okay.
I sell food for a living, so I'm not very well educated on that matter. So could you please explain to me what that means?
Sure. So actually there's 2 layers of approval that would be required. The zoning amendment allows restaurant uses, and it's always been conceived that the hotel, of course, can't operate without the ability to serve alcohol. So that's permitted under the zoning amendment. And part of council's requirement when they originally approved this project to go forward in this process was that the firehouse was contemplated to be converted to some sort of a restaurant with liquor sales. Anything else, and even in those instances, when you're talking about licensing an establishment to serve alcohol, if they're not buying an existing license that's already in Conshohocken, they have to go through a process through the liquor code that requires this council to approve a transfer of a license from somewhere else in Montgomery County into Conshohocken. So they can go through that process, but in order to get it approved, they first have to go through council. On top of that, in this zoning amendment, they have to come to council and put on a case, like you're going to see in a little bit, where they have to demonstrate that they can justify the transfer, and it has to be approved by council as part of the zoning. So, assuming that they could buy a license in Montgomery County, which I think the last one sold for somewhere around $530,000, and transfer it into Conshohocken, they would need council's approval for that, and on top of that, they would need to hold a public hearing here to get zoning approval. So I think Ms. Sokolowski's comments are correct. We've been very careful to belt and suspenders make sure that you can't just have that creep of liquor licenses into this particular development.
But my question to you, Mr. Savona, is why not address that? Why not address this issue prior to this and say, look, we are concerned about this. The hotel, definitely, bring a liquor license, but the rest, we do want to, I would love to see, I'm sure they seem to be fabulous real estate developers. They seem to be very, very bright, smart people. And I am sure that there is something that can be done, that they can find, and I would assume too, that this will take some communication. You know, one of the things that I've learned coming here and living in Conshohocken is that every time I wanted to do a project, I had to go physically to every single one of my neighbors and knock at the door and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Do you have an issue with that? How would that affect you? And I really took the time to listen to their concerns, and that's the reason why my projects got approved. So I would like to see the same rules that I have applied for us, you know, for them to exercise, you know, those and come and talk to the restaurant community and say, what are your concerns? In an open dialogue and say, well, how can we make this town better? I'm sure that they're doing, I heard about the parking, I think it's great. You know, I think that this is going to be a great project. And again, I'm forward this project. But I do believe that it has to be a more open dialogue about the alcohol and about the restaurant community in Conshohocken, and seeing how, instead of building more competition for how can we put provisions already now so we make sure that what they bring more, maybe shops, maybe more, retail, I don't know, something of that nature, that it will bring foot traffic, and then people come and they shop or they watch a movie, whatever the case might be, and then they can go and they can support the businesses that are already there. I think that's a way of working with the community in a more proactive way. Nobody has come and seen me. Nobody has come and seen Brian or Robin or any of the guys that we've been here for many, many years. And again, we love this town, and I love to see progress, and I love to see new houses getting prettier, and when it snows, I mean, you guys do a fantastic job, and I love Conshohocken. I never want to move away from here, but I just ask to really don't get to the point where now it's up to the PLCB, because I've seen already liquor licenses approved here across the street from a church, which you don't supposed to, without extra parking, that you don't supposed to have it. How did that happen? I have no idea. But I hate to see that happening. So why don't we all come together, have a more open dialogue, and see what is it that the township needs. Look, I'm just going to throw one single example of a great concept. There is a great concept in Philadelphia, fabulous concept, of this place that is a daycare, right? And people that have jobs, they come in and they have little offices where they can kind of like supervise their kids, and they have art, music classes, they have all types of things. Something like that, we don't have it. It would be great for the community to have. And it would be a fantastic business for someone. You know, I will look into that business. But that would be something that it will help, and it will feed a need for that the community already has. So my only point is, let's just be more creative, okay? And let's have a better and more open dialogue to see how we can make Conshohocken better, and how we can help these gentlemen to approve their project, and it will be a seamless transition so we can all be happy. I think that is a very fair request. That's all I want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would put out there Keystone. You've heard what our community is looking for, so I challenge you in meeting what the needs of what the community is looking for as we move forward. I know that nothing is set in stone as far as who the tenants of these facilities will be, but let's work together. It's an exciting project, and we've worked together well up to this point. I would hope that we continue to work that way.
All right, my name's John Vogt, and I live at 126 West Hector Street. This thing's going to get built in my backyard, basically. And my concern is, what are we going to do? It's going to bring a lot of construction workers and more cars. We have no place to park now. I come home, and people from the office building are in front of my, is there any way, could we get permit parking there?
That's something we should look into for you.
And it's something that has come up in discussion.
Right.
Yes.
We were always told that because of the church, but that's not there. That's not an issue anymore.
Right. And we're aware with this project that there are different things in the structure of the way our parking is set up that will be able to be changed to better suit the residents. And it is something on our list to look at.
That's my biggest concern. It's happened before because they've been building there for the last 25 years, and it's like whenever it starts, we don't know where to go.
Right. And we will be looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? I will end this thing with my opinion. Everybody's coming here now and say they want more input, which you can have. But when we have council meetings, we have 2 council meetings twice a month. I come in this council hall, and sometimes there's only 6 people in here. How do you want input if you don't come and find out what's going on in the borough? This guy, what's going? He said he want more input. When you have a councilman, come and find out what's going on. If you start complaining or making suggestions at the beginning of our meetings or when we start these projects, then these guys can make their adjustments and probably help you and go along with some of your projects. Don't wait till the last minute when everybody is about ready to do everything and everybody's here now complaining. So, anybody else got any more comments? Okay.
My name is Joe Malzita. On that point about being made aware of what goes on, I live at 200 Wood Street, right across the street from Hidden Creek Townhomes. All right? They have dug up the street, 4, 6, 8 spots. They dug up my lawn. No one beforehand had said that was going to be done. No one since has said what's going to be done about it. I was at the meetings when the permits were approved, when the variances were approved, but no provisions seem to be made for the residents. We don't know ahead of time what goes on. We assume all you people up here are going to take our best interest at heart when all these plans are addressed. Now my lawn's been dug up. No one has ever come to me and said, we're going to make you whole. The street has been dug up. No one has ever come and said it's going to be paved or not.
Is the project finished?
No, it's not finished.
Oh, right there. Ask the engineer what happens when the project's done before anything gets going. They gotta come and put everything back the way it was.
Who?
The builder.
The builder isn't building my house.
Right.
The builder hasn't dug up the street. The electric company has dug up the street. The water company has dug up the street. I don't know who to go to. I would assume when you approve the permits that you would look to our best interest, not just me, but the people on Hector Street, the people that are now building by the firehouse, the buildings up by Wawa, wherever they put new buildings in or anything, it should be incumbent upon you people to worry about us first, not approving a permit so somebody with money come in and lower our tax base or care for our tax base or worry about progress.
We do worry about you, but that's what we're just telling you. When they build these buildings, there's things at the end that's got to be finished. Whatever they take up, they got to put back the way it was.
Okay.
Now, what do you see? The contractors does. The contractor does.
The process has been in hand for 8 years.
Yeah.
The building, they've done one half. They're doing the second half. I still have no clue. So now my lawn has to be torn up until they decide they're done, or until they decide they want to come back and fix it. Is that how the process works?
Yeah. Mr. President, no disrespect to this gentleman, but we have a stenographer and a record about this one project. If we could finish this and then he could come back up and get into details about that project outside of the.
No, I'm done. It was just brought up by concerning your project, and this is all tied in. When you say we don't come, we do come, but we're not equipped with the information that we need to address the problems until they happen.
And we don't know they're going to happen until they happen. When
these people come and want to get a permit to do something.
If your gas line went out tonight, or your electric line, and they come down and tear up the street, and what happens? What do you do? When the electric company or the gas company come down and tear up your street?
I would call the electric company.
Yeah, and what happens when they tear up the street? Do they fix it right away?
Well, hopefully.
No, hopefully they fill it in and they come back later to fix it the way it perfectly was, don't they? But this is what your contractor is going to do. You got it.
The contractor
I'm just-
or the electric company?
President
or the
Griffin,
water company?
President Griffin, can
The
I,
contractor. That's where you get an escrow on all
Mr.
these
President.
buildings. That's what you call it.
So not to
Don't
divulge,
worry.
right, so your point's taken, sir.
Good.
If there's something germane to this project, specifically the details of the ordinance, that's what we're talking about.
All right.
We've gotten way far afield and started to talk about
Not a
particular lawns or streets. All right. Are there any other comments
Any
relating
comments?
to the SP4 ordinance, which is the matter that's in front of council? All right. If not, then we're going to transition at this point and adjourn the hearing for the SP4 amendment. The next item for consideration by council this evening it's been advertised as an application for conditional use approval by Keystone Property Group for a conditional use under section 27-2206A of the proposed SP4 zoning amendment, which would permit the use of the reduced parking calculations under the SP4 ordinance, which allows shared parking as set forth in the ordinance. The application would apply to the 6 parcels that are presently proposed to be rezoned SP4. The conditional use would not apply to the Washies parcel since that's not subject to the shared parking calculation. The application for conditional use by Keystone has been advertised for public hearing before council at this point this evening. So council's aware, Mr. Gunlack and Ms. Wunder will again be representing Keystone on this application. At the conclusion of this hearing, we will take action first on, if council's inclined, on the proposed ordinance and then the conditional use application. Mr. Gunlack, with that introduction, would you proceed?
My colleague, Ms. Wunder, will take it from here.
Good evening. As Mr. Savona just explained, we're here at this part of the hearing on an application seeking conditional use approval for shared and reduced parking for our proposed project. As a housekeeping matter, we're handing out another set of exhibits pertaining to this hearing. The first is a parking assessment prepared by Traffic Planning and Design, originally dated December 1st, 2016, last revised April 10th, 2017. We also have conditional use PowerPoint slides, which I'm going to go through during the hearing, as well as some updated parking slides that update previous PowerPoint presentations that were provided at prior hearings regarding the parking assessment. We also have a review letter provided by the Borough Traffic Engineer, Kinley Horn, which is dated May 5th, 2017, and a response to that review letter prepared by Traffic Planning and Design dated May 15th, 2017. The SP4 ordinance amendment provides several requirements for obtaining this conditional use approval. The first is that evidence of reduced parking needs shall be documented and based on a parking study that's prepared and satisfactory to the borough. The second is that the minimum total number of parking spaces required to serve all of the uses shall be determined by multiplying the minimum parking requirement for each individual use by the appropriate percentage provided in the shared parking credit schedule, which is included in the SP4 ordinance amendment. The third is that a transportation demand management or TDM plan shall be submitted for the proposed project and approved by the borough as part of this hearing. That a 15% parking reduction may be permitted within a quarter mile from a passenger rail station if the unified development includes certain elements providing pedestrian connectivity. The fifth is that Borough Council can require an applicant as part of this conditional use hearing to make a portion of the parking available to the public. And the last is a general conditional use requirement provided in the zoning ordinance that the applicant shall demonstrate that the proposed use shall not be contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. With me tonight is Pete Spizak of Traffic Planning and Design. I'm just going to have him provide some testimony regarding these requirements.
So before you do that, not to interrupt, but just for purposes of the record, the binder or the package of exhibits that you've handed up to council will mark those since it's a continued hearing and we're under one record. This will be marked as applicant's Exhibit A3, with Exhibit 3.1 being the revised Sora West parking assessment, 3.2, the conditional use PowerPoint slides, 3.3, the updated parking slides, 3.4, the traffic engineering review letter from Kimley Horn, and 3.5, the response to the traffic review letter. It's worth pointing out for the record that, as Ms. Wunder indicated, the Transportation Demand Management Plan is a required condition to be demonstrated for qualification for the conditional use. That is contained within your Exhibit 3.1, the revised parking assessment by TPD.
Yes.
So with that, you can proceed with your colloquy.
Thank you, Mr. Simona. Pete, can you state your name for the record?
Peter Spizak. S-P-I-S-S-Z-A-K. Yeah, it's a tough one.
And can you state your position at Traffic Planning and Design?
Senior Project Manager.
Are you familiar with the requirements for obtaining conditional use approval for shared and reduced parking under the zoning ordinance and the SP4 ordinance amendment
Yes.
as I just described?
Yes.
And in your opinion, does the applicant meet all these requirements?
Yes.
Let's go through them now. Did you prepare a shared parking study in accordance with Section 27-2206A1A of the SP4 ordinance amendment?
Yes.
And is that the parking study that's provided in the packet of exhibits entered as Exhibit A3?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe the conclusion of the parking study?
Sure. Basically, the parking study concludes that the project will provide more than sufficient parking to serve the needs of the project based on the mix of uses that are proposed. And it also means that it also concludes that we are providing more than the maximum amount of parking to serve each use of the project at any given time during the day.
And in summary, what is the amount of parking required under the parking study and the ordinance amendment, and what is the amount of parking being proposed?
So under Phase 1, the required number of spaces would be 891, and under Phase 2, or full build-out, the required number of spaces would be 1,319. We would be proposing 949 spaces in Phase 1 and 1,447 spaces at full build-out.
And is this amount of parking being proposed sufficient for this project?
Yes.
Did you receive a review letter from the Borough Traffic Engineer regarding the parking study?
Yes.
And is that review letter also provided in the packet of exhibits entered into the record as Exhibit A3?
Yes.
Did you discuss the review letter and parking study with the traffic engineer and resolve most of his comments prior to tonight's hearing?
Yes.
And have you submitted a response letter to the review letter?
Yes.
And that response letter is also included in the packet of exhibits, correct?
Yes.
Can you briefly summarize your responses to the review letter and the conclusion of your discussion with the traffic engineer?
Yeah, basically what we did was we took all of the traffic engineer's comments into consideration. We revised the parking calculations per his comments, and the parking slides that you see up on the board and what you have in your packet, those parking numbers have been updated to show the revisions that we made based on his comments.
And according to his review letter, does the Borough Traffic Engineer believe that the applicant is providing sufficient parking for the project?
Yes.
Does the parking study use the shared parking credit schedule in accordance with Section 27-2206A1D?
Yes.
And does the parking study include a proposed TDM plan for the project in accordance with Section 27-2206A1E?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe the proposed TDM plan?
Yeah, so there's a couple elements of it. One of the elements is to designate a transportation management coordinator. That person would be probably someone that works works with one of the tenants, or any tenant in the office building can be designated as the point person to go to find information about your transit schedules, your potential carpooling. You can match up people within the office building and have them carpool together. They would be the people to encourage biking and walking to work. There could be another element would be a commuter center, which would be room in somewhere designated in either one office building or both office buildings or somewhere in the overall development that would provide all the information that you would need for, whether it's how to get down to the transit station or what the schedules are. Also, the TDM plan would provide incentives for people to use transit or alternative to single occupancy vehicles. Things like encouraging any office tenant to include a shower or a locker room in their office complex so that people could bike to work and then not feel all sweaty all day and take a shower. They would offer pre-tax deductions on transit fares. Also, the pedestrian and bicycle, it would offer pedestrian and bicycle programming and support, which would, we would provide bicycle storage. We would provide maps of trails in the area, and just to get people out of their vehicles by themselves and get people to bike or walk to work. And then a couple other things, funding. The TDM plan would be fully funded by the applicant, and then there would be a monitoring component to the TDM plan, which basically would, after the site gets to a certain point, whether I think we have 75. Once the office and employment section of the development gets built out to 75% occupancy, we would then start a monitoring study, which we would count traffic coming in and out of the site. We count parking throughout the day to determine if we are hitting our 15% reduction goal. If we're hitting our 15% reduction goal, we will keep all the TDM measures in place that are currently in place. If we're not, we would modify the TDM plan to give it a more robust program to get more people out of their cars or more people to carpool or more, just to get the percentage that we're looking for, the percent reduction that we're looking for. And any changes to the TDM plan would be brought to the borough for approval, and we would then implement them.
Does the project provide any public parking in accordance with section 27-2206A3 of the ordinance amendment?
Yes. So
please explain.
the bottom two levels of the proposed parking garage in phase 1 will be designated. There are 150 spaces that will be designated for public parking. These spaces will most likely be limited to 2-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then open to anyone after that. Also, during non-peak times, anything above those spaces would become open to public use.
And lastly, in your opinion, do you believe that the project is contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community?
No, I think the project would be a benefit to the borough and the surrounding community.
And do you believe that we're providing sufficient parking to meet the needs of the site as well as alleviate some of the stress of insufficient public parking in the borough?
Yes.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Spizak regarding the requirements for conditional use approval?
When you do the analysis as far as... So when you do the analysis as far as the parking and you're doing the count, how frequently will you do that? What will, and will we receive the results of that?
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, the first time would be when the site gets to be 75% occupied.
Okay.
We would look at that. We would do a monitoring study. We'd do the counts. We'd provide that information to you, to the borough. And if we're the way it's written right now is that every 2 years we would do an update to that monitoring study. And if we meet our goals for 6 years, so 3 monitoring studies, then we stop the monitoring studies.
So if we do receive, if it seems like that's not the case, and we're having some challenges with parking, at that point, can we ask for an analysis to be done?
Sure, I believe so. Yeah, I mean, if we're not hitting our goals, then we're going to continue the monitoring until we do
Okay.
hit our goals.
Okay. Well, just, I ask only because it could be a difference of opinion. If we're hearing something from the constituents and the folks in town, then that may differ. So if we could have your support in telling us, no,
Yeah,
you
would
are
definitely. I mean, we would definitely submit our monitoring study results to the borough for review. I mean, obviously, you're not just going to take our word for it. So
Right.
we would definitely submit all the information that we had to you to make, just so you guys could review and see that we're not just pulling numbers out of thin air.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And I just have one additional question. In your parking credit schedule, can you just tell us on the record what best practices or benchmarks you used to come up with your values?
So there's a publication called from the Urban Land Institute. It's called the Shared Parking. It's basically a shared parking guidebook. They've done studies of different land uses and at different times of day, what percentage of full occupancy is there in different times of the day. So that shared parking credit schedule is based off of those studies and is very common. It's very commonly used throughout the country. So there is a reference for it. It's not just, again, pulled out of thin air.
And Pete, this is also the credit schedule that's used by Montgomery.
Yeah, Montgomery County Planning, yes. That's basically...
The Montgomery County Planning Commission?
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
Yes.
And who was the national or...
Urban Land Institute.
Urban Land Institute.
Correct.
Thank you.
Pete, just to clarify, your application, you're indicating you were proposing 949 parking spaces in Phase 1 and 1,361 spaces at full build-out. I thought I heard you start off with a different set of numbers, or are those the numbers?
What was the first number you said?
949 parking spaces in Phase 1, 1,361 parking spaces at completion of Phase
Right, the 949 stayed the same. The full build-out, we added another level underneath the Phase 2 building to address the borough engineer's comments.
So what's the total?
1447.
1,447. Okay. And this is irrespective of the additional parking spaces that Councilwoman Flanagan referred to earlier that we talked about providing for public use, right?
You're talking about the Phase 2?
The 150 parking spaces.
The 150 will be built up in the first phase with the parking structure.
But that's over and above the 949 you're proposing.
No, that's included in the 949.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Any public comment on the request for conditional use? Very well. Anything further, Mr. Gunline?
No, that's it.
All right. If there's nothing else, council, at this point, we can conclude the testimonial portion of the public hearing. This time and place has also been advertised for action on council's part to either approve or deny the the SP4 zoning amendment as proposed by Keystone, followed by a decision subject to certain conditions on the conditional use. So,
I'll make a motion to approve.
to approve the ordinance, the SP4 ordinance.
Yes,
I would second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
The ordinance is approved, and Mr. President, if you would, we would suggest having approved the SP4 ordinance and subject to the conditions set forth under section 2206A of that ordinance, that the application for conditional use proposed by Keystone Property Group for the parcels identified in that application, we'd recommend be approved, subject to the following conditions. That the conditional use granted by the approval will be consistent with the application, testimony, and exhibits submitted to council at this public hearing this evening. That as a condition of the approval, the applicant shall provide not less than 150 parking spaces in the proposed Phase 1 parking garage for public parking during peak hours. which are defined as weekdays from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. In addition, the applicant will be entitled to negotiate a separate agreement with the borough regarding pro rata reimbursement of costs of garage maintenance and repair on an ongoing basis as a part of the final land development approval. The applicant shall open the remainder of the proposed Phase 1 parking garage for public parking during off-peak hours, subject to retainage of certain parking for the exclusive use of the hotel and office. The off-peak hours are defined as weekdays from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m., weekends, and during holidays. The borough and the applicant will discuss and agree on terms to govern the spatial configuration, signage, and parking enforcement over the public parking spaces provided under this conditional use approval. And all of the terms and conditions of the conditional use approval will be included as notes on the final record plan, and that the applicant will not be permitted to proceed with any development absent a final land development plan approval. And so the record is clear. The conditional use will be to permit reduced parking of 949 spaces in Phase 1 and 1,447 spaces in Phase 2.
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Very well. If there's nothing further, then the record in this matter is concluded. Mr. Gunlack, Ms. Wonder, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For all your time.
Thank you.
Might be in order to take a short recess. We go get Mr. Stokely.
We'll take a short recess.
Enjoy.
Come back and let's go.
As a second portion of this meeting, I'd like to just make a brief announcement that we did hold an executive session tonight on a matter of employment, 2 legal matters, and a matter of real property. And Mr. Savona, if you'd like to continue.
Certainly. Mr. President, the next item under unfinished business is considering the approval of Keystone Property Group's request for extension of the agreement of sale and development agreement that applies to the property we just discussed in the preceding 2 hearings. As council will recall, on December 31st, 2013, we signed an agreement of sale and development agreement with Keystone Property Group and the Redevelopment Authority of Montgomery County. That agreement provided for Keystone's ultimate purchase of the property at the corner of Elm and Fayette and the property we know as the old Washies Firehouse from both the RDA and the borough and the development of that parcel. There were a number of deadlines set forth in that agreement, which, based upon the amount of time that it has taken us to work through the zoning issues and to begin to work through the land development issues, I think it's clear that Keystone will not be able to close on that property by the end of June of 2017, which is only less than 2 months away. So Keystone has requested an extension of that deadline to close on and purchase the property for an additional year, which would mean that the property would go to closing on or before June 30th of 2018. So given the adjustment to the proposed adjustment to the expiration date of the agreement of sale, the construction commencement date, which always has been no more than 2 years from the date of closing under the agreement, would also be correspondingly adjusted to reflect that they would have to commence construction within 2 years of closing. So it's my recommendation that council approve the extension. Obviously, this will have to be approved by the Redevelopment Authority, and I think they have an upcoming board meeting where they're considering it, but the RDA typically doesn't act to approve anything without your consent and approval. So if council's inclined, a motion would be in order to approve the 4th Amendment to the Agreement of Sale and Development Agreement.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendment?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very well.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed. I have to recuse myself.
Okay, motion carried.
Very good. That concludes the unfinished business, Mr. President.
Jeff?
The next portion of our meeting will be the consent agenda. I will briefly run through these items. However, I'd like permission to pull item C out of the consent agenda items and move it to letter E under unfinished business. The consent agenda items, therefore, are the approval and adoption of the April 5th and April 19th meeting minutes, accepting the April ending treasurer's report and accounts payable, authorizing the advertisement for public bids on Leland Mansion, approve the revised DCED program procedures for the rehabilitation program, approve Resolution 2016-06 for the Municipal Authority extension, and approve Resolution 2017-07 designating certain dog parks or dog-friendly parks.
I have a motion.
I will make a motion to approve, eliminating letter C.
Which one?
I'll second.
Which one you eliminate?
We've eliminated letter C
Letter
and
C.
move it to unfinished
It'll be
business.
all items.
All
with
items
exception
except for
of C.
letter C.
Okay, I got a motion. Do I need a second? A second?
Second. I needed it.
Did the minute? Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. President, unfinished business. We discussed the Conshohocken Dog Park Committee structure at your work session meeting. The resolution in front of you, 2017-08, is to formalize that Dog Park Advisory Committee per the scope specified. Any questions? Make a motion.
You want to vote?
Yes.
Or are you going to do all of them at once?
You want to do them all?
individually.
You can do them individually.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I have a second.
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Next item under unfinished business is approving Resolution 2017-09, home program funding. At your work session meeting on May 3rd, we discussed a resolution that's supporting the CDBG funding. This home resolution would be supporting the home program funding that is also in jeopardy of being unfunded in the federal government.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that
motion.
I got a second. I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Letter C is rejecting the CDBG curb ramp project bids and rebidding with alterations to the scope of work and the bid structure. Per our engineer, Mr. Hughes, the bids that came in that was for the CDBG curb ramp project were unfavorable. So we are asking permission to reject those bids and rebid.
I have a question on that, Gina. What the scope of the amount of that is?
Mr. Hughes?
Paul?
The funding amount is $40,000 in community development block grant funds. Actually, $20,000 from 2014, $20,000 from 2015 that expire in 2018 and 2019 respectively.
Okay, so we need bids that come in under that
Without
amount?
any additional appropriation, yes. Yep.
And we did not get that.
No.
I got a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Give it the last one there, Steph.
Next item of business is to authorize the advertisement for public bids for the Hector Street Streetscape Design Package. I will turn this over to Ms. Sokolowski.
So we have, Stephanie and I met with the planners, and we have come up with a design that is very similar to the streetscape design that was originally shown to the residents, where it will bring back trees to their corners, as well as some additional trees in bump outs, and then some additional greening along some of the sidewalk areas. And we're able to do that project within the budgeted number that was allotted. And I was very pleased with the work that was done by the planner to get us to that spot.
This item is already appropriated for in your capital budget.
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
I I got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Last item under unfinished business is letter C from the consent agenda, approving the renegotiated loan terms and cash management with Fulton Bank. That has been pulled out of your consent agenda for additional discussion in speaking with Mr. Savona's office and in actually renegotiating the loan terms. The paperwork that is required will require an appropriation of $1,500 to process that paperwork. And Mr. Savona, if there's any other additional information.
Concord Financial is you'd be approving a proposal from Concord Financial. Concord was the third-party consultant, financial consultant that was used by the borough when you originally financed this building. Because of the renegotiation of the terms with Fulton, it'll require certain filing of forms with DCED and some other regulatory bodies, just because we're a public entity and we took out public financing. So it's actually much more cost-effective for Concord to do that work and to file those, get those forms prepared for filing, as opposed to having my office do it. Concord had done it in the first round, and it would be not duplicating or reinventing the wheel. So it would be my recommendation that you authorize Concord's proposal to perform that work for not more than $1,500.
I'll make a motion to.
I got a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
As a corollary to that, I think the actual original consent agenda line item was to approve the restructured loan terms that are prepared by or proposed by Fulton Bank. I think that's summarized in the memorandum from the borough manager. The loan change would modify the loan interest rate from 2.86 to 2.39, which will save you a considerable amount of interest. It would also facilitate moving the borough's accounts as a depository to Fulton. So I think that item would also need your approval just so we can move forward on it.
So if you can make a motion on accepting the renegotiated loan terms and cash management.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
There are two items under new business. One is on the agenda, one we need to add to the agenda.
Bless you.
The first new business item is a housekeeping item. It is to approve Resolution 2017-10, the Berkheimer Liaison. The previous borough manager is listed as the liaison between Berkheimer and Borough Council. In order for us to access reports and confidential information, a change to the name on the account needs to be made, and a resolution is required to do that.
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
I got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Uh,
All opposed? Motion carried.
The last item under new business, I will turn to Ms. Flanagan.
It's come to our attention that there are some dangerous trees in Marywood Park that need to be taken down. So I'm asking council for the approval to appropriate funds from the Marywood Fund to take care of the tree removal.
I have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do you have a second?
Yes, and just to clarify, the proposed amount for that tree removal is approximately $3,500.
Right, 38.
I believe that the Director of Public Services was able to get a 10% discount off of that
Oh,
price.
wonderful. Very good. It's always nice to see money.
Okay, I got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Take the trees down.
The dead ones, just
Dead
the dead
ones. Okay.
I do not have any other business.
The mayor, you have anything?
Yeah, one quick thing, Mr. President. Just got a letter today from our good friends at Post 1074. Just a reminder that the Memorial Day services will be held on Monday, May 29th. For the in-town points, we'll be at the 2nd and Fayette at 11:30 and back at the Post 12 o'clock. So anybody wants to come on out, those guys certainly appreciate it. I'll ask Eleanor to post this on our borough website for the town to be able to follow along. That's it.
Colleen?
Oh, one other thing. We probably won't be back before then, but the car show is, of course, scheduled for the first Saturday in June. So June 3rd, we got the Fanatics scheduled for 10 o'clock. If you got any kids, bring them out. The mummers are coming at 11. If you got any dancers, bring them out. And Distolfo's karate around 12:15. You got any karate kids, bring them out.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen?
Yeah, good to know. Thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, I like the request from council. I had a resident ask me about a couple of watch children signs.
Yeah.
As you know, the children are growing in our borough now, and 11th and Freely coming up the hill. On the right-hand side, there's a group of kids that play on the lawn every day, 6 or 7. There's 10 kids on the other side, and we need a couple watch children signs there.
I'll talk to the chief.
And we also need that street light put in. That's actually where the children's play. We talked about putting the street light on 11th Avenue where there's one missing, an LED light. And we agreed we would do it towards the winter months before it got dark at 5 o'clock. So if we could get that done, I would appreciate it.
Just to clarify, Mr. Stokely, is that an existing streetlight?
That's an existing pole without a street light.
An existing pole
Yeah.
without a streetlight?
Years back, I think that when the borough couldn't afford they would take the lights down. Either they didn't get a chance to put them back up, or we didn't have the funds to do it. But there are some poles which we talked about, and the police went around to check them out. We talked about, I guess, 2 months ago. Yeah, and we talked about this one pole that didn't have an arm on it. So, and there's a lot of children there. I mean, I think we need to get this done.
And just to clarify the location?
11th and Freely, when they come up the hill at 11th and Freely, on each corner, maybe, on each side.
Is that something that we have or we have to purchase?
What?
The light?
The light?
Pole? The
I'll
arm?
have to ask
Mr.
Oh, the
Sokolowski,
light.
do we have a stock of lights that we can utilize at that location?
Project, that's what we were talking about. Once we're done with the grant part of it,
Mhm.
then yes, I'll have some extra ones. And we have the poles for it. So we just have to get it installed.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Also, I'd just like to bring up, and most people know it and some people don't, but we had a problem 4 weeks ago, a home invasion on 10th Avenue in my district. And then we had another problem with people in the park with a gun at Sutcliffe Park, and it happened the same day, if I'm correct?
Yes, sir.
And yes, and I just want to make sure that we let our residents know, have an aware program, that they'll call the police in Little League. I think it was 2 hours before somebody called the police, and we should put a 9/11 maybe poster in that snack bar that they would call the police right away and not wait.
That was a little alarming. There were so many witnesses.
Yeah.
20 known witnesses. None of them called the police for an hour and 15 minutes. It caused a discussion for us of looking at possibly seeking funding for the next budget cycle to actually have what they have on college campuses, a blue light set so they can go, and for those who don't bring phones with them or leave them in their car, it's unavailable, give them an opportunity to access a instantaneous push to talk for a dispatcher. So it was something we were really early talking about, but since you had brought it up, I figured I'd let you know we've been discussing ultimately.
And also, I spoke to Lieutenant Metz about this issue with the home invasion in the park, and it's surrounded with drugs, and I think that we have young kids in this borough. I just had a dear friend lost his daughter. We had a young man that his family was in this borough forever, that he died of overdose of drugs, and I think we need there's needles in our parks. I think we need an awareness program that what do we do for our children to help them get through this epidemic in this country. And I mean, it is really bad. And what are we doing about it? I know you guys are out there all the time, but I mean, we need to, if people see somebody, I was talking to a resident today, he said there's a car comes down the street every morning around 3:30 in the morning, and he pulls up, he goes into one of these houses, and he picks something up and he goes off. And it happens every night. So I think the residents need to know, if they see something that's not right, they got to call the police right away, like with the bomb thing. I mean, that happened quick, but I think we need to get an awareness program, especially with the drugs.
What if we were to start the town watch again?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. That's something we should look into.
Would that be something that would help?
We do have some measures in place also that we've been trying to work with the county. It's the opioid epidemic has
Right.
been a hot button issue, and rightfully so. We're looking to find out what kind of recommendations they have to have an awareness brought forth to the public. We have this discussion a lot about how we can communicate better. We're developing an information page so we can have it on our website and then share it with the borough admin and be able to project it also. But it would be information we could give out as far as warning signs and treatment and how they can come and just talk to us either formally or informally, so we can give them a little more guidance about how to approach the issues.
Do you know when it's going to happen?
We could probably rush it up into the beginning of June. We're getting pretty close to developing it. Our IT skills are not as keen as some of the other departments.
Yeah, right, yeah. Understand.
We're doing our best to expedite it.
I have a quick question. At the old police station, there was an outside phone for 911. Is that one gone, or can it be moved to the park? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it had gone, but we have a box here that's being used to relocate and then have the technology from that phone. Basically, it's just a casing now, but we can look to see if we can have it replaced.
Okay.
It's something that would be obvious and recognizable.
If it's usable, why not? Put it in the park.
Officer Connor, did these events happen in the daytime?
The incident at the park was daylight hours. I think it was around 5:30.
And are we still using bike patrol through various sections of the borough? I know years ago there was a bike patrol.
Yeah, we still have 7 officers that are certified bike officers.
And have we put anybody on bikes recently?
Information for you. Normally it's special events, and we leave it at the discretion of staffing. When we put an officer on patrol on a bike, we lose one of the coverage for response. Usually we have a surplus. We're able to dedicate them. So I don't have an answer for you.
It's okay. I just was curious how we use them. Thank you.
Anything else, Bob?
Yeah, thank you.
Nothing to add. No, thank you.
Karen?
No, I don't have anything to add to that, but I just have a question as far as Sutcliffe Park, for instance, and the concern about there being drugs. What do we do in dusk through evening? I know that I see police officers all the time, everywhere, but specific to in that park, is there anything else that?
Since that event had happened, Chief Euler has dedicated an officer to be responsible only for the park. These are 5-hour shifts that he's dedicated to. 4 o'clock until when the park is supposed to be closed. After closing, we have scheduled time for the park to be checked. Okay. Within the hour, that to be checked hourly. So we do routine patrol through the park, which requires us to drive through the paths and also go out on foot. So
okay.
Yeah, it is expected unless there's other emergency activities, but we're pretty regular with it.
Okay, good.
Vary those times.
And
There's a few dugouts that are.
And that additional task that was approved by Chief Euler, is that additional manpower or someone's role that's existing on?
Currently, it's being used. That shift has been dedicated to our part-time patrolman. We've been staffed fairly regularly, lack of vacation being used and such. So we haven't been able to bring him into work and supplement our regular shifts. So that's what he's been assigned to. So instead of having him sitting and wait for someone to call off sick, we bring him into work in the park.
So it's not taking someone off of the street patrol like the bicycle.
Correct.
It's an additional.
Today he's working it. He was the 5th officer working what we normally run for.
Okay, thank you.
I can attest, he was parked on Freedley, or Wood Street, rather.
Oh, yeah.
Very visible, so
They've
he
been
was
down.
there at 7:15 or 6.
Thank you.
Nita?
Nothing.
I just want to remind the folks watching and the people in the audience that there is a lot of information on the Borough website, and I strongly encourage folks to go out onto the Borough website. The other thing is we introduced a couple weeks ago the Borough app that will be going live June 21st. And there will be information out there. I have been piloting it myself, and I find it very user-friendly. In fact, I find it easier to use than the Borough website. So I just wanted to put that out there as a...
That will be going live in conjunction with your regular public meeting on June 21st.
And that will be available to our citizens.
Correct. Thank you.
Mike, you got anything? No, sir. Any public comment?
One other quick one, Mr. President. Ray, I think I saw you on the new slide in the park, checking it out today. Can you give us an update? Things are looking up.
Everything looks like it's on schedule, but the schedule is supposed to be June 1st, tentatively. We did have a little bit of a hiccup because the installer, prior to coming to Conshohocken, had some rain delays at a job at Radnor. So they're about 3 to 4 days delayed, but all the equipment should be in by tomorrow afternoon. Then we have to stone it, and then the pour in place comes in, and then some landscaping. So it still looks like June 1st.
I was down there yesterday, and our Public Works Department is doing a fine job.
They were down all day today. I see them today.
So when you leave there, you go straight to the Meadows?
They already started today.
They started
Oh,
that
did
today?
they?
Yeah, they started that today.
All right, great.
Any more comments? With that, meeting adjourned.